Hey, what is going on guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the new best builds for almost every single mid lane champion in patch 8.4. I'm not going to cover champions whose builds did not change from last patch to this patch, so assassin champions like Talon, Zed, Yasuo, their builds haven't changed. Some other AP mid lane picks like Echo, Fizz, their builds haven't changed either, so I'm only going to go over the champions that did get a significant change to their build for this patch. So for every single champion, I'm just going to give a brief rundown of why they're going for this build now, because there's quite a few different champions that we have to get through in this video. And I'm only going to be going over the core items that these champions are building in this patch, and what that means is basically just the first 2 or 3 items that they're pretty much going to pick up every single game. I'm not going to go over like the 4th and 5th items for every champion because I feel like that would just take way too long, and usually the 4th and 5th items that you're going to build do always depend on the situation. So the first one is going to be Ziggs. Now Ziggs is going for tier into Morello and then usually death cap 3rd item. The reason why this is such a strong build is because with Ziggs, your siege in the mid game is super strong and you're going for that tier so that you don't run out of mana. And if you get Archangels now on Ziggs, then you're almost never going to run out of mana, so it's just a really nice item on him for the mid game. You go Morello second because Morello is basically like the new Leandries from last patch. It gives you the magic pen, so it makes these poke oriented mid lane champions have a really strong mid game, and you're seeing a lot of these like poke mid laners now going for Morello as their second item. So for Xerath, it's very similar to Ziggs, however, you are going to be going Ludens instead of Archangels. Archangels is better on Ziggs because Ziggs does tend to run into more mana issues than Xerath does, so on Xerath you can just go for the Ludens. You can have a really strong mid game there with your Ludens and then your Morello. For Vladimir, what's working best on him right now is going for a Protobelt into Spellbinder and then Morello. The Spellbinder there on Vlad just gives him a really good mid-game power spike. Once you start teamfighting and once you get that stacked up on Vlad, you pretty much get a free ghost when you activate it, which really helps Vlad out during teamfights. It just allows him to get onto his target and stick onto his target really nicely, and it also gives you the extra AP as well, so it allows him to one-shot even better once you do reach the teamfight stage. So Victor's build is very interesting in this patch. More and more pro players are starting to go for a tier rush, finishing off their hex core upgrades, going Archangels, and then finishing a Lichbane. The reason to why you'd go for tier rush now on Victor is because you get a ton of mana now from the Archangels item, and because Victor's Q, it does scale off of his maximum mana, or the shield on it does scale off of his maximum mana. It's actually a really nice item on him now. A few patches ago, Victor got that change to his Q to where when it is upgraded, it shields you for 60% more. So that combined with it scaling off of mana and Archangels giving you just a ton of mana now makes it actually a really nice build, and it allows you to just get this really big shield when you do use your Q now as Victor. So for Vel'Koz here, we've got a Ludens rush into Morello and Leandries. The Ludens and Morello there, super good mid-game build combo. It's just going to give you a really nice mid-game power spike, and then going for Leandries as your 3rd item is a good option on Vel'Koz because it's very easy for him to proc the extra damage on Leandries, the burn damage, because he does have a lot of slows in his kit, and it's just very easy for him to amplify that damage. So for Veigar in this patch, you're just basically going for a full one-shot build. You're going for a Ludens rush into a Rabadon's and then Morello. Rabadon's did get those buffs in this patch, and it does give you a lot more AP now. So once you pick those 2 items up on Veigar, your one-shot potential is super good, and it just gives you a really good mid-game there, and you can pretty much one-shot any squishy target in the game. So for Taliyah in this patch, even though a lot of people are building GLP on her, it's really not that great of an item. Ludens is performing a lot better, and more pro players are starting to build Ludens now on Taliyah as the patch does progress. Going for that Ludens into Morello combo is very standard on a lot of these mid laners, and then going for Leandries into Rylai's is going to be your build most of the time on Taliyah. So for Syndra is performing very poorly in this patch. She has one of the the lowest win rates for any mid laner, but the build that is working best for her right now is kind of similar to the Veigar build. You're just going to go for this one-shot build and just try to burst people out with your ultimate. Going for the Ludens straight into a death cap there is going to give you a nice mid game, and it's just going to allow you to use your ultimate and pretty much one-shot any squishy target. And then as for Swain, more people are starting to build Archangels now on him, along with either Rod of Ages or Abyssal Mask in this patch. And then more people are starting to go Rylai's as well on him because of the Rylai's buffs. So for Ryze, his build is pretty similar to Swain. You're going to want to go tier into either Mask or Rod of Ages, Archangels, and then as for your third and fourth item, Spellbinder and Death Cap are interchangeable. So if you are valuing the movement speed that you get from Spellbinder, if you're up against an enemy comp who can catch you out pretty easily, then I would go for that as your third item. But if you're snowballing super hard and you don't really need the bonus movement speed from the Spellbinder, then just going for a Death Cap to get a ton of AP in there is going to be what's best for Ryze in 8.4. So for Orianna, most pro players in this patch are going for the Archangels instead of Ludens. Most solo queue players are going for Ludens though instead of Archangels. The reason to why Archangel staff is better than Ludens on her is kind of similar to Ziggs. You want to be spamming your abilities out as much as possible as Orianna in the mid game, and because Archangels just gives you a ton more mana than Ludens, you don't really have to worry about mana issues in the mid game, whereas if you do go the Ludens, you will find yourself running out of mana a lot of the time on Orianna. For Malzahar's build, not too much has changed from last patch to this patch. The only difference in his build here is that you're now going to be going for the Ludens Rush there instead of the old Morellos. So for Lux in this patch, a Ludens Rush into a Death Cap is what's working best on her. A lot of Lux's power in solo queue comes from hitting that bind and then just bursting down that squishy target. So by going for this build, because Death Cap did get buffed in this patch, you just have a ton of raw burst power with Lux, and it just really helps out her mid game, and it allows her to burst down those squishy targets when she does catch them out. So for LeBlanc, pretty similar build to last patch. You're still going to be rushing Gunblade on her, and then you will now be building Ludens instead of the old Morello. So for Kassadin, Rod of Ages and the Lichbane are still pretty core on him. More people are now going for Archangels though on Kassadin, mainly because you do get a ton more mana from Archangels in this patch, and because Kassadin's ultimate does scale off of his maximum mana, it is now a pretty good item on him. And then Kassadin's rune page, what's actually working best on him right now is going for Fleet Footwork and taking that precision tree there as your primary. The reason to why this is a pretty good option on him is because Kassadin needs to get past his early game and into his mid to late game to be successful. So by going for Fleet Footwork, it gives you that extra sustain in the laning phase. It actually does have a pretty good AP ratio on it as well. So as the game does progress, you will actually be getting a pretty good amount of health back when you do proc that. And then the attack speed on Kassadin really isn't wasted either, because his auto attacks actually do a good amount of his damage and they do scale with his AP. So it is performing better than both Aerie and Comet in this patch. So I would definitely recommend giving it a shot if you haven't yet. So for Karthus, very few pro players are playing him in this patch, so I couldn't really get a ton of information on what pro players are building on him for 8.4, but what's working best from stat-wise right now is going for a tier into an early Rylai's and then Archangels into a Spellbinder. So for Heimerdinger, he's another one of these mid laners just going for that standard 2-item build of the Ludens and then Morellos. For Galio in 8.4, the Rod of Ages into Morello and then Death Cap is what Bjergsen was running on his Galio. By going for the Rod of Ages and Morello there, it does give you a little bit of extra durability from the HP that you get from both of those items. And then by going for a Death Cap as your third item, it just allows you to have a really strong one-shot combo. For Diana in this patch, just going for the straight up one-shot build is what's working best on her. So the Ludens into Morellos. A lot of Diana players are still going for Nashor's Tooth and Lichbane, and that is more of the sustained damage build on her, but that one really isn't performing very well in 8.4. So for Cassiopeia, her build overall hasn't really changed from last patch to this patch, but she is now doing very well with Liandry's as her third item. You're still going to want to go tier and either Abyssal Mask or Rod of Ages, and then Liandry's third item is just super good on Cassio because she does benefit a lot from that 10% bonus damage amp from the Liandry's. She just does a ton of consistent damage, so that really helps her out, and then she does a really good job at shredding tanks as well from the passive from Liandry's. For Azir in this patch, this is the build that Faker was running on his Azir. Now, a lot of other players are going for different builds too, and there wasn't really just like one build that most Azir players were going, but by going for this Nashor's into Morello there, you get a really nice mid game from the Magic Pen from the Morello, and then because Rallies did get buffed in this patch, it is actually a pretty good third item now on Azir. So for Aurelion Sol, the only thing that's really changed about his build is that you're no longer going to be going for GLP. The GLP item is pretty underwhelming on most mid lane picks in this patch, so Rod of Ages is performing much better on Aurelion Sol right now, and then going for Liandry's and Rylai's there is still a very good option for your second and third items. So for Anivia in this patch, her build is very similar to Cassiopeia's. The Rod and the Archangels are still core on Anivia, and then Liandry's as your third item is great on her because you're going to be dealing a ton of consistent damage as Anivia, so the 10% damage amp you get there from the Liandry's is really going to help her out in team fights. And then as for Ahri in this patch, a Luden's Rush into Spellbinder is super good on her. It just gives you a ton of AP there for the mid game. When you do get your Spellbinder stacked up and you get like 100 stacks on that, then you're going to be gaining a ton of AP, and it allows Ahri to just dash in and one-shot without even needing to hit her charm, which just makes Ahri a super strong pick. So that is going to be all for this video, guys. Now, like I said at the start of the video, I didn't go over every single mid lane champion in this video because if their build did not change from last patch to this patch, then I just thought there was really no point in going over those champions. But with that being said, guys, if you did enjoy this video, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I'll see you in my next video.